In its peak days, the Deauville Beach Resort was a status symbol of Miami's elites. Crowds watched as the once iconic hotel that hosted the Beatles and other key figures in history is demolished. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I'm CJ Hero. And I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. to participate with other world leaders for the APEC summit in Bangkok, Thailand. The United States earmarks $66.5 million for enhanced defense cooperation agreement.
Not divide the world into parts.
G20 host and Indonesian President Joko Widodo issues warning to end the new Cold War. And Grammy Award winner and actor Harry Styles announces concert in Philippine Arena. Ferdinand Marcos Jr. will push through with his participation at the APEC summit in Thailand. The president also wished a fast recovery for Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen from his COVID-19 infection. Eden Santos has the story.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has submitted himself to a COVID-19 testing as part of the health protocols for the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation or APEC summit in Bangkok, Thailand. The president is scheduled to leave the country tomorrow, Wednesday, to join other world leaders for the annual meet. Just like the Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN Summit, this is Marcos' first time attending the APEC Economic Leaders meeting as head of state. The November 16 to 19 event is the first face-to-face meeting of the APEC economies since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. The chief executive considers ASEAN and APEC as important platforms to promote the interests and other concerns of the country on various issues with other heads of state. APEC member economies include Australia, Brunei Darussalam, Canada, United States, China, Russia, and the Philippines, among others.
Yun ang mga plano namin dahil sa sitwasyon ngayon, sa mundo ngayon, hindi natin kaya, kahit sinong bansa, kahit Amerika, kahit Russia, kahit China, yung mga malalaki, kahit sila, hindi nila kayang labanan at gawa ng paraan itong mga problemang hinaharap natin na nag-iisa.
Meanwhile, the president has directed members of his ASEAN delegation to Cambodia to undergo COVID-19 testing after Cambodian leader Hun Sen confirmed he has tested positive for COVID-19. Marcos wishes Hun Sen to get well and recover immediately from his infection. The president had a close encounter with the Cambodian leader at the recently concluded ASEAN summit. Meanwhile, before leaving the country for Thailand, the president will also attend an event in Mandaluyong City based on his official schedule. Eden Santos reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Marcos administration is serious about addressing the country's poverty. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. this morning met with the officials of the National Economic and Development Authority, or NEDA, in Malacanang. The president discussed the Philippine Development Plan for 2023-2028 with NEDA officers led by Secretary Arsenio Balisacan, including the assessment and challenges, targets, strategies, and priority legislative agenda. Balisacan stated during the meeting that despite the global crisis and the high inflation rate, the government is certain it can achieve the 9% poverty incidence target by 2028. Balisacan said the government can achieve a single-digit poverty rate with continued growth by providing not just more jobs, but higher quality jobs and lowering the prices of commodities. Amid the higher cost of living, the government is urged to increase labor sector salaries. According to the National Wages Productivity Commission, the daily minimum wage in the National Capital Region is now at 570 pesos per day.
To increase the budget allocations of small and budget-constricted agencies, a lawmaker is proposing the scrapping of intelligence and confidential funds in all civilian agencies of the government. Mayan Corvera has the details.
Senate Minority Leader Aquilino Coco Pimentel has urged the Senate to scrap all confidential and intelligence funds allotted to all civilian agencies of the government for 2023. Pimentel said when the period of amendments for the proposed 5.68 trillion peso national budget comes, he will file a motion to eliminate the said budget to fund other agencies including the cash assistance to senior citizens.
Ang ginagawa namin dito in writing. We do that in writing. So I will move in writing to amend the budget of the OVP, delete the 500 million in confidential funds, and then ang daming request in-enumerate ko nga, di ba? Yung sa field post na lang, 400 plus million. Sa senior citizens pension na lang, 25 billion kulang. Wala.
Pimentel particularly mentioned the 150 million peso fund under the Department of Education, 500 million pesos under the Office of the Vice President, and the 19 million pesos confidential fund for the Office of the Solicitor General. Pimentel maintained that these agencies do not have confidential funds this year but allotted the amount for the 2023 national budget. The minority leader said the practice is a bad precedent and insisted that confidential funds must only be given to law enforcement agencies, especially for investigation and surveillance, which is part of their mandate.
OVP nga ngayon, ang budget is around 700 million. So, for 2022, nag-collapse ba ang Office of the Vice President at 700 million? Hindi naman eh. So, tanggalin 2.3 nga siya next year. Tanggalin mo yung 500, 1.8 billion pa rin ang naiwan. So, kasi pag tinangin mo naman para saan yung confidential funds ng civilian agencies? Sasabihin nila, to support our law enforcement function din We will surveillance kami, anti-drug something ganon, anti-criminality, mga
Under the 2023 proposed national budget, aside from the OVP, DepEd, and OSG, 31 other agencies has allotment for confidential and intelligence funds for next year. This includes the Office of the President, Department of Finance, Bureau of Customs, BIR, DFA, DOJ, Bureau of Immigration, DSWD, Marina, Coast Guard, Anti-Money Laundering Council, Energy Regulatory Commission, Commission on Audit, and Office of the Ombudsman, all civilian agencies. Pimentel said intelligence fund should be uniformed personnel and other law enforcement groups like DILG, PNP, NBI, DND, Philippine Navy, Air Force, and National Intelligence Coordinating Council. For this year, the Senate has a 50 million peso confidential fund, but they waived it for 2023. Out of the amount for the proposed budget, a total of 9.2 billion pesos were allotted for intelligence and confidential funds under the 2023 national budget.
Sa DepEd kasi pwede nating i-realign sa other expense items ng DepEd. So for example, classroom. So, ano mas importante? Ano ang mas tugma sa mandato ng Department of Education? Gumastos ka for confidential funds or gumastos ka para ayusin ang classroom?
Pimentel is asking the Commission on Audit to look into the ways this money will be used, especially in confidential funds, which could also be considered a lump sum. The COA through Senate Finance Committee Chairman Senator Sani Angara said the COA already created a unit that would conduct post-audit to confidential expenses and issue a notice of disallowance to agencies where irregularities are observed. Mayan Corvera reporting for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
The United States is eyeing to construct 5 additional facilities in the Philippines under the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or EDCA. The project will be funded with $66.5 million or 3.9 billion pesos. Vin Pascua has the story.
The Department of National Defense said $66.5 million or 3.9 billion pesos are set aside to fund the construction of approved projects under the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or EDCA, between the Philippines and the United States. The projects include the construction of 5 additional joint military facilities at the agreed locations of both countries. In a statement, the Department of National Defense said the projects are slated for implementation in the next 2 years. Senior Defense Undersecretary and Officer in Charge Jose Faustino Jr. clarified that the EDCA sites will not be used as military bases by the U.S., but as training facilities, humanitarian assistance, and disaster response facilities and warehouses. To expedite EDCA's implementation, the Defense Department said it would finish the infrastructure enhancement and repair projects as well as developing new infrastructure projects at existing EDCA locations and explore new locations to improve the mutual defense posture. The establishments of new EDCA sites were discussed during the Mutual Defense Board Security Engagement Board meeting last September in Hawaii, which was attended by Faustino and U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin III. The EDCA, a supplemental agreement with the existing Visiting Forces Agreement, was signed on April 28, 2014 between the two countries. The agreement allows for the extended stay and rotation of American troops in the country, the building of facilities, and the pre-positioning of equipment, aircraft, and vessels, but rules out permanent basing. The constitutionality of the agreement was questioned before the Supreme Court, but in January 2016, the High Court ruled in favor of the agreement with finality. Subsequently, the Supreme Court also ruled with finality in July 2016 the constitutionality of the VFA. I am Vin Pascua reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has appointed Romeo Lumagi Jr. as the new Commissioner of Bureau of Internal Revenue, or BIR. A statement from the Office of the Press Secretary said Lumagi was sworn into office this morning and will be replacing Lilia Catrice Guillermo, who served as BIR Commissioner for 4 months. Prior to his appointment as BIR Chief, Lumagi served as Deputy Commissioner of the agency. Part of his duty is project management and implementation service, which develops and supervises the implementation of the overall reform or modernization program of BIR. Lumagi also headed the task forces that intensified government collection in the areas of assets recovery, direct selling, multi-level marketing, and investment scams.
Voting 255 in favor against 3, the House of Representatives has approved for the third and final reading the proposed excise tax on single-use plastic bags. House Bill 4102, authored by Albay Representative Joey Salceda, aims to minimize single-use plastic bags' effect on health and the environment. Salceda, who also chairs the House Ways and Means Committee, said the Philippines is third among the largest contributor of plastic pollution around the world, where 2.8 to 5.5 million metric tons of plastic waste were collected every year. Plastic bags thrown into waterways is one of the main reasons for serious flooding. Salceda said aside from its negative effect on the environment, plastic also poses a health hazard because it contains cancer-causing chemicals. Under the proposed legislation, a 100 peso tax for every kilo of single-use plastic bags will be imposed on the manufacturers. The tax for single-use plastic bags will be increased by 4% every year starting January 1st, 2026.
A 3-day training on the general instructions for the resumption of continuing registration for qualified overseas Filipinos for the 2025 national elections is held in Europe. Beverly Madrid has the details.
The Philippine Consulate General in Barcelona hosted for the Europe region the 3-day training on the general instructions for the resumption of continuing registration for qualified overseas Filipinos for the 2025 national elections. The Philippine delegation to the training was led by Honorable Jesus S. Domingo, DFA Undersecretary and Chairperson of DFA Overseas Voting Secretariat, and Commissioners Honorable Socorro Inting and Honorable Ray Bulay from the Commission on Elections. Participants came from different Philippine Foreign Service posts in Europe. According to Honorable Bulay, the number of overseas Filipino voters dropped from over 1.8 million in 2019 to 1.6 million plus in 2022 due to the deactivation of double registrants. He also added that COVID-19 pandemic had a negative impact on voter registration and participation.
It's something like this. In 2016, total number of registered overseas voters, 1.3 million plus. In 2019, 1.8 million plus. Magtataka ka, in 2022, bumawa sa 1.6 million plus. Ang rason doon, yung deactivation. Yun nga, yung doble-doble. Merong registro doon, lumipat dito, hindi pa nakakancel yung registration doon, nag-registro dito. So, na-cleanse namin yun noong 2022. Kaya lumabas yung totoong numero. No? Now, assuming ganun pa rin yung trend, wala na tayong COVID ngayon. Remember, may COVID noon. Hindi gumagana yung mga institutions, kaya mababa.
As part of the public information campaign to intensify the partnership of the COMELEC and the DFA through the Overseas Voting Secretariat, Honorable Domingo emphasized the importance of Filipino communities, organizations, and media in informing and encouraging the Filipinos to register.
Community. So we really appealed for the help of the Filipino community organizations to be our force multipliers, to not just their members, but mga kaibigan, kapitbahay, and the entire Filipino community. And really, it's all about information, because we cannot afford to delay or to accept, because that has a multiplying, cascading effect every moment of delay. Because you just think about the logistics, because yung mga balot, etc. The things are emanating from Manila. So just imagine the shipment and that. So we really see two pillars of support: youth and media, especially our community and global media, Filipino media, and our Filipino community organization. So yes, we need your help to really get the word out for.
Consul General Maria Teresa S.M. Lazaro ensured the participation of the Philippine Consulate General in Barcelona in helping the government to disseminate the information about the voter registration.
In helping the consulate, the government, to disseminate the information about doing it early. Registration, kasi we also exert our best to reach out to the community. We go to different places just to be able to register and enfranchise as many Filipinos as possible.
Registration of qualified overseas Filipino voters will resume on December 9, 2022 through September 30, 2024. New registrants and deactivated registrants must register in person at Philippine consular offices to update their biometrics. Barcelona, Spain, Beverly Madrid reporting for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Baby girl Venice Mabansag was born at Dr. Josefa Belia Memorial Hospital at 1:29 a.m. Philippine time. Venice, according to the Commission on Population, or POPCOM, is the 8th billion person born in the world. POPCOM's Chief Administrative Officer Lynette Therese Monsalve gave Venice and her mother, Maria Margaret Villorente, a surprise cake. Monsalve said they are hoping that Venice will be a symbol of development in the future. Based on a study, it took the global population 12 years to grow from 7 to 8 billion. Meanwhile, the annual World Population Prospect Report observed that the world population is growing at its lowest rate since 1950, having fallen to less than 1% in in 2020. The said report was published on Monday to coincide with World Population Day. The United Nations' latest projection suggests that the world population could grow to around 8.5 billion in 2030, 9.7 billion in 2050, and 10.4 billion in 2100. Coming up, Indonesian President Joko Widodo warns G20 members to end the new war. U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping disagree on Taiwan's future. And shootings at 2 American universities claim 7 lives. Mata ng Agila International will be right back.
Sa Counterpoint, bilateral agreement ng Pilipinas at Taiwan. Pag-asa ba ng mga Pilipino?
Our farmers should take advantage of this. No? Every year or even every 3 months, we send farming students. The best is agriculture partner.
Ngayong Miyerkules, kasama ni Atty. Sal Panelo, ang MECO Chairman Silvestre Bello III. Sa Counterpoint, tuwing Miyerkules, alas 10:30 ng gabi, dito sa Net25.
Balita ko, ang mga pusap-usapin yan, yung mga napupunta rin sa MECO, malaki ang kita.
Full-on travel is back, and there are countless destinations, tour packages, and hotel and resort stays to choose from. Ito na nga talaga ang pagkakataon sa mga mahilig o may planong maglakwatsa. The 6th World Travel Expo by AdAsia Events was held with a big bang with a wide variety of travel deals.
They feel the demand from the visitors itself. They wanted to travel again. There's the revenge travel. We've been locked down for 2 years. Now we're getting back. Ang market ni World Travel Expo, since we started, mga young people. So sila yung very aggressive in traveling.
Open for business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
Continues here on Mata ng Agila International. Indonesian President Joko Widodo told G20 members to end the war as he opened a leaders' summit Tuesday in Bali that will be dominated by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Eyeing a joint G20 declaration that would condemn Russia's 8-month-old invasion and threats to use nuclear weapons, European officials and U.S. painted the summit in Bali as evidence of Russia's deepening isolation. But Jakarta pursues a neutral foreign policy and rebuffed Western pressure to disinvite Moscow ahead of the meeting. Without mentioning Russia by name, Widodo called on members to not allow another Cold War between major powers.
We should not divide the world into parts. We must not allow the world fall into another Cold War. We must end the war. If the war does not end, it will be difficult for the world to move forward.
Russian President Vladimir Putin shuns the gathering and is being represented by Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will address the meeting virtually.
U.S. President Joe Biden and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping met for 3 hours on Monday in Bali, Indonesia, prior to the G20 summit. The two disagreed on Taiwan's future. Biden told Xi he opposed any changes in Taiwan, which China considers to be part of its territory. on the issue of the Ukraine war and Russian President Vladimir Putin's threat to use nuclear weapons. Both leaders underscore their opposition to this, saying a nuclear war cannot be won. Biden also nudged China to rein in North Korea following Pyongyang's spate of missile tests.
I'm confident China is not looking for North Korea to engage in further escalatory means.
In a sign of thawing ties, Biden announced U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken will visit China to follow up on Monday's discussions.
Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen has tested positive for COVID-19 after hosting more than a dozen world leaders, including U.S. President Joe Biden, at the ASEAN summit in Phnom Penh. In a Facebook post, the Asia's longest ruling leader said he returned a positive result upon arrival in Indonesia for the G20 summit, but was not experiencing any symptoms. The Prime Minister stated in his post that he had been tested every day, including before flying to the G20 summit in Bali, and all the results had been negative. Hun Sen added that he is not sure when he contracted the virus, but when he arrived, the Indonesians took a sample from him in the evening, and on the next day, it confirmed COVID-19 positive. He said he was lucky that he arrived in Bali late and missed dinner with other leaders. For safety reasons, the Prime Minister said the Cambodian delegation would return home Tuesday afternoon, which means missing his meetings with Chinese President Xi Jinping and French President Emmanuel Macron at the APEC summit in Bangkok, Thailand later this week. Hun Sen also had a maskless encounter with 8 other leaders at the ASEAN summit, including those from China, Japan, Australia, and Canada. The ASEAN summit concluded last Sunday, November 13.
A group of the world's richest countries have launched a program to help out their poorer neighbors devastated by climate disasters. The Global Shield Against Climate Risks was announced Monday at the UN Climate Summit. It is backed by the G7. It comes as many vulnerable nations demand more compensation for damage caused by a heating planet. Ghana's Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta says it's good business sense for richer nations to help poorer countries recover.
For by leaving climate-vulnerable nations at the mercy of the climate catastrophe, you could be triggering a global economic meltdown. It is frightening to envisage the cascading impact due to the economic disruption that will lead to social upheavals, political instability, increased conflicts over scarce resources, and unprecedented refugee flows.
The first countries to be given assistance include the Philippines, Bangladesh, Costa Rica, Fiji, Ghana, Senegal, and Pakistan.
At least 7 students are dead following a weekend of violence at 2 universities in the United States. At the University of Virginia, 3 football players and 2 others were wounded late Sunday at the university's main campus in Charlottesville. 1 person has been arrested and a manhunt is underway for the second gunman. Students living on campus were locked down overnight. That order was lifted Monday morning, but classes were canceled Monday. Meanwhile, 3,200 kilometers to the west, a shooting at the University of Idaho has left 4 students dead. The students were found in a home near the university campus. Police have released little information about the incident.
Rescue workers have recovered the body of a man after 2 houses in the northern French city of Lille collapsed. At first, there did not appear to have any casualties. The 2 adjoining homes had been evacuated on Saturday after a resident warned that one of the walls was warped. Authorities soon realized the doctor was missing after calls to his phone went unanswered. He had been lent an apartment in the building for the weekend. There is no indication as to why the 3-story houses collapsed. Authorities checked neighboring houses for cracks and gas leaks.
The UN General Assembly wants Russia to pay for the repair of the damage it has done to Ukraine. A non-binding resolution calls for the creation of a mechanism for reparations for the war, which has left more than 200,000 people on both sides dead or injured since the conflict began on February 24th. Ukrainian ambassador to the UN, Sergei Kislitskaya, told the General Assembly that nations that vote against the resolution support impunity and lawlessness.
The proposal in front of you today is a proclamation that Russia must be held accountable for its violations of international law in Ukraine. It is reaffirmation of the need of a concrete mechanism for reparations that will breathe life into this proclamation. It is a call for the member states to come together and build legitimate international infrastructure to deal with the consequences of Russian aggression against Ukraine.
The Assembly voted 91-14 in favor of the resolution. 63 countries abstained.
A statement from the Czech Republic says the Council of the European Union has launched an EU military assistance mission to Ukraine. According to RT News, the bloc's mission is to provide training for 15,000 Ukrainian soldiers as the military conflict between Moscow and Kyiv ensues. EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell told the press that the decision to launch the training program was agreed upon in record time. He said that a total of $110 million will also be allocated for the initiative. Borrell also confirmed that the mission, which is intended to last 2 years, would be operational in a couple of weeks. RT News also reported Borrell saying that the bloc's decision to provide aid to Ukraine was a good one, since Kyiv forces had recently entered Kherson after Russia's withdrawal. The top diplomat added the training will take place in Poland and Germany. Nevertheless, RT News said several countries opted out of participating in the mission. Hungary said it did not even vote for the program and would not send any trainers nor contribute financial resources towards its operating costs. Though Austria offered its support for the initiative, it refused to take part in the training program. Kremlin has consistently warned Western countries against providing military support to Kyiv, arguing that such assistance would prolong the conflict and unnecessary casualties.
Lugansk region sees intense artillery duel as Russian army repels Kyiv attacks. Murad Gazdiyev of RT News follows Russian forces targeting Ukrainian positions in artillery fire. He files this report.
At this point, right now, Grad launcher has fired a salvo of distancing rockets to see where they land, to judge precisely how to correct artillery fire. What will follow is the...
Artillery does not rest. In multiple shifts, batteries of launchers and howitzers fire at Ukrainian positions. They are most often the deciding factor in whether an attack fails or succeeds.
The situation along the Kremenная Svatova front line is still very much tense. Russian defenses here are stable. The front line has stabilized, but nationalist elements, as well as the Ukrainian military, and predominantly on many sectors, foreign mercenaries, haven't stopped efforts, haven't ceased efforts to find a weak link, to probe Russian defenses in order to find a weak link to push their offensive, which has stalled across the Lugansk front lines.
We're assigned the task of shelling 80 enemy soldiers. The Grad rocket launcher did the job and covered them with artillery fire.
Ukraine is sparing nothing, neither resources nor lives, in an effort to reclaim momentum and break through Russian lines. They know they're on the clock. Tens of thousands of fresh troops are training across Russia, preparing for deployment. The military-industrial complex has kicked into overdrive, and the Russian economy and society are gradually preparing for a conflict unseen since the Second World War. Morad Gazdiev, RT, from Lugansk region.
RT correspondent Maria Finoshina confronted the Associated Press in their booth at the G20 summit. Finoshina asked the AP News who or what their source was when they published news about Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov being hospitalized in Indonesia. According to Finoshina, AP News did not name any sources when they published the article.
Так, ребят, я не шутила, я действительно иду выяснять. Мы здесь журналисты в пресс-центре сидим вместе, и по счастливой случайности кабинка AP буквально next door от Russia Today. Поэтому сейчас зайду к ним и спрошу, что за источники они использовали. AP. Hey guys, sorry to disturb you. AP was the first to report about Lavrov hospitalized. Can anyone comment on what kind of sources did you quote?
It's in the story.
Sorry?
It's in the story.
It's in the story. The names?
Where are you from? Who is this?
From I am your colleague. Which story you are?
What? From what agency? From what agency?
Could you please, where can I find this story? Sorry, I don't want to disturb you.
Okay, couldn't leave, please.
Yeah, couldn't leave, please. That's what we expected.
India, one of the top producers or sugar producers in the world, will limit the amount of sugar it exports. The objective, in addition to ensuring food security, is to produce ethanol as an alternative source of the country's energy. Let's hear more from Ranjan Sharma of RT News.
The sweet-tooth Indian population is expected to consume some 27 million tons of sugar this season. The government says it wants to prioritize domestic availability first and foremost for its 1.4 billion mouths. The move has been welcomed by many, like this sweet shop owner in Muzaffarnagar, who's already struggling with rising inflation.
The price of sugar has gone up immensely instead since I first started my sweet business. We hope the new policy will bring us some relief.
The cap on exports has been put on all grades of sugar, raw, white and refined. But the move aims for more than just food security. Another focus area of the sugar policy is the production of ethanol in the country to reduce dependence on fuel imports and to move towards green energy. The plan is to mix petrol with ethanol made from molasses, a byproduct of sugar production. And India has advanced its target for 20% ethanol blending by 5 years to 2025.
India is about to produce about 40 million tons of sugar, in which 4.5 million tons will go in consumption of ethanol. It's a win-win situation for the industry, for the government, and for the exporters as well. So we expect that India will export 6 million ton by the end of March. It's a great news to the farmers as well, because at 18.32%, every mill will be able to sell its stock. So it should be able to pay back the farmers as well.
While the move by India would be sweet for the country, it will leave the world thirsty for supplies, at least for some time. Ranjan Sharma, RT, Muzaffarnagar.
Next on Mata ng Agila International. Mexico president slams mass protest against electoral reform. Khan supporters continue protest march to Islamabad. And Argentine healthcare workers march demanding better salaries. Find out the details of these stories when Mata ng Agila International returns.
adventures, irresistible, captivating. Sino siya? Abangan sa Net25.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together. Let's get together sa Net25.
Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador criticizes a mass protest against his proposed electoral reforms. He says it is an attempt by his opponents to return to corrupt old ways. A day after tens of thousands of people marched in Mexico City, López Obrador says those who demonstrated did so in favor of corruption, racism, classism, and discrimination. The president, who regularly accuses his predecessors of corruption, insisted that his plan sought to strengthen democracy. The proposed reform, which involves amending the Constitution, requires support from at least two-thirds of lawmakers in Congress. The president's plan would also reduce the number of seats in the lower house of Congress from 500 to 300 and those in the Senate from 128 to 96. Protesters demand a halt to the proposed reform that they say will undermine the National Electoral Institute. The National Electoral Institute is the independent body that organizes the country's elections. The next presidential election is scheduled for 2024, and the Constitution limits presidents to a single 6-year term.
Massive rallies in support of ousted Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan continue their march to Islamabad. In the next 2 weeks, Khan is expected to meet and address the protesters just outside Islamabad to press their demand for the military government to take over. Now, Hamidullah Khan of RT News for the details.
The tug of war in Pakistan's power corridor is entering into final phase. Thousands of protesters were here when former Prime Minister Imran Khan addressed to them, and there was another protest in KPK province. The third was near Islamabad. So all of these protesters are leading towards Islamabad. Last week, the military establishment in a corps commander meeting decided 3 things. First, the country should go for early elections. Secondly, no military general having a political background will become the army chief in coming days. And thirdly, they said the army will not stop protesters and paramilitary troops will only be deployed to protect the government buildings. So all this political chaos and crisis is now entering into the final phase, and Imran Khan will address his protesters and he will join them near capital Islamabad in couple of weeks. Hamidullah Khan, Faisalabad, Pakistan.
Authorities in Rio de Janeiro closed the bridge connecting Rio to the city of Niterói Monday after a ship collided with the structure. Apparently, the vessel had been abandoned. Strong winds blew it into the bridge. No traffic was allowed on it for several hours while authorities inspected it for structural damage.
Residents, doctors, and healthcare workers march in Buenos Aires while holding candles and lights, asking for higher salaries and better working conditions. Due to uncontrolled inflation, which is expected to reach 100% this year, 30 public hospitals in the city of Buenos Aires are struggling. According to Tatiana Estrada, an infectious disease doctor at the Fernandez Hospital, the hospital took away her vocation and she can no longer work and live with the salary she receives, being treated with an undignified job. Estrada added that over the years of struggling, medical workers were not valued as nobody gave them a decent salary even during and after the pandemic.
Estamos movilizando en esta marcha de velas, de luces, con la consigna de que no queremos que se apague la salud pública en la ciudad de Buenos Aires. Venimos de 9 semanas de movilización, estamos el día 20 de paro en los hospitales, sin toma de guardias por parte de los residentes y los concurrentes. El reclamo es principalmente salarial, empezó hace 9 semanas, donde nos encontramos por debajo de la canasta básica, y hoy en día nos tenemos que ver obligados a seguir movilizando por la falta de respuestas.
In its prime days, the Deauville Beach Resort was a status symbol for Miami's elite. The historic hotel hosted several key figures, from the Beatles, Frank Sinatra, and U.S. President John F. Kennedy. But on Sunday, a team with the BG Group imploded what was left of the Deauville Beach Resort. Some preservationists opposed the demolition, but Mayor Dan Gelber said it had to be demolished due to multiple reports by building officials and judges saying that the hotel was unsafe. Gelber added that the future of the site was uncertain since Miami Beach voters rejected a referendum that would have allowed someone to take control of the site and build a new hotel and condominium complex. Yet Gelber maintained that they will find a better option for the future of Miami Beach residents.
Coming up, Bezos pledges to give away his billion fortune to charity. Phrygian Caps to be the Paris 2024 Games mascots. And Harry Styles to perform in Philippine Arena. These and more stories when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Amazon founder Jeff Bezos vowed to give away most of his $124 billion wealth to charity. In a CNN interview with his girlfriend, Lauren Sanchez, Bezos confirmed he plans to dedicate a large part of his fortune to combat the climate crisis and support people who could unify humanity. Bezos said the hard part of giving the money away is figuring out how to do it in a levered way. Bezos' pledge matches similar commitments by Bill and Melinda Gates, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, among others. However, Bezos is not new to setting up charities or making donations. In 2020, the online tycoon pledged $10 billion to create Bezos' Earth Fund, which he launched to help fight climate change and preserve wildlife. Last Saturday, he and Sanchez announced they were giving $100 million to Dolly Parton's charities. Bezos also owns the Washington Post and the space tourism company Blue Origin. Recently, Bezos made a virtual appearance at the B20 conference on the sidelines of G20. He reiterated Amazon's vision to power all its operations with 100% renewable energy. The Amazon founder also pledged to help to improve the world's economic growth.
We meet in complex and difficult times, facing the triple crisis of conflict, COVID, and climate. As business and government leaders, how should we approach the current situation? Working together with all of our combined human ingenuity, we will invent our way out of this box. We will protect this planet and improve economic growth and well-being. We will do both.
To celebrate the French spirit, organizers say Phrygian caps will be the Paris 2024 Olympic and Paralympic Games mascots. Brand director Julie Matikihin says Phrygius aims to show that sports can change everything and sports deserve to have a prominent place in society. She adds that their team was almost ready not to make a mascot if they did not find a real reason to do so. Yet Paris Games organizers say the Phrygian cap embodies the French Republican spirit. Matikihin adds that Phrygius also carries the conviction and values of France, which have been built over time. The red Phrygian caps come in two versions, the Olympic and the Paralympic one with a blade leg. Additionally, the Phrygian caps were favored over animals, which have mostly been the first choice in other Olympics, such as the Bing Duan Duan panda at the 2022 Winter Games in Beijing.
The Philippine Sports Commission has vowed to support the country's national boxers until they qualify for the 2024 Paris Olympic Games. PSC Chairman Noli Ayala made the promise as Asian Elite Boxing Championship gold medalist Carlo Paalam and bronze medalist Nesty Petesio and Hergy Bacyadan paid a courtesy call to him at Rizal Memorial Sports Complex. Association of Boxing Alliances in the Philippines, or ABAP, President Ed Picson and Secretary General Marcos Jarwin Manalo accompany the boxing team. Aside from funding the team's training and foreign trips next year, PSC is also studying the creation of a group composed of coaches and sports science experts, like what the agency did to Tokyo Olympics gold medalist Heidelin Diaz and world number 3 pole vaulter EJ Obiena. Ayala also advised Paalam, Petesio, and Bacyadan to hang in there because their victory is also the victory of the Filipino people.
Thailand will now substitute for former season-ending host China after it canceled its schedule due to COVID-19 pandemic. Originally, the Badminton World Federation planned to host the flagship $1.5 billion event in Gwangju between December 14 and 18, but the event will now take place in Bangkok, Thailand. Since COVID-19 emerged in 2019, almost all international sports competitions scheduled to take place in China have been canceled. The BWF decided to relocate the tournament after consulting the Chinese Badminton Association regarding the challenges brought about by the current pandemic situation. The World Tour Finals is now set to take place in the Thai capital's Nimibutur Arena from the 7th to the 11th of December, which will comprise the top 8 players and pairs in each category for their share of what the BWF called the biggest prize pool ever seen in badminton.
In Leesburg, Virginia, in the U.S., a Harry Potter-inspired interactive experience gives fans another way to enjoy the fictional but fantastical world. Jeff Sanidad reports.
25 years after the first Harry Potter book by J.K. Rowling was published, Wizarding World keeps taking various shapes, from books to movies to theme parks and now an interactive experience. Today, we bring you an exclusive first look at Harry Potter, a Forbidden Forest experience held in Leesburg, Virginia. Walk into the depths of a dark forest and discover fantastic beasts and illuminated Wizarding World moments. Explore the After Dark, the sounds, lights, and special effects that bring to life the wonders of the wizarding world. Celebrating some of the most iconic forest scenes from the Harry Potter and Fantastic Beasts franchise, visitors can be in character to some famous scenes, bringing the fantastical world to life. Discover fictional characters like centaurs, unicorn, a hippogriff, nifflers, giants, and other interesting fictional creatures before a Patronus appears before your eyes.
Well, we're really lucky with the Forbidden Forest that it features in nearly all of the Harry Potter films. So if you come here as a fan, you're going to get to see some of the best creatures from both sets of films franchises, but some of those really exciting scenes as well from the Harry Potter films. It's an illuminated trail, so people can come and walk at their own pace around a really beautiful forest setting. They're going to experience creatures, the chance to interact with things. It's a real mix of an evening for friends and family to come and enjoy together. I think something of this nature, we want people to feel a range of emotions. There's some laughs out there, things to do together as a family. There are also some moments which are really sweet and lovely. So a real range of emotions. But I think when we designed this, what we wanted was an experience where people could come together, enjoy an evening in a really beautiful natural environment. That was very important to us. Well, if you're a Harry Potter fan, there are a number of things that you would expect to see in the Forbidden Forest, and I think we've got all of those for you. But there are also some unexpected creatures and activities you can enjoy. And of course, we have a beautiful village at Midway here where you can enjoy food.
What sets this exhibit apart from others?
I think what sets this exhibit apart from others is the fact that we are set in this beautiful location in Leesburg, Virginia. So not only do you get the wonderful outdoors and this fabulous forest, but you get the wizarding world in action, and people can really experience it in a very different way to other experiences that are out there. We opened last year in the UK, in Manchester, and we have this experience here in Leesburg, Virginia, and then we have got another one in Westchester in New York, and then one in Belgium as well.
Awesome. The experience was great. I've been a Harry Potter fan since I was 13, grew up with the books and then watched the movies. So going through the Forbidden Forest in person was amazing, really, really amazing.
This is an outdoor trail. Wrap up warm, outdoor shoes are strongly advised. This experience will be open for public until January 31st, 2023. Jeff Sanidad, Washington, D.C., Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
You know, it's not the same as it was. A bigger and better venue for Harry Styles on his third upcoming tour to the Philippines, and that is set to be held in the world's largest indoor arena, the Philippine Arena. On March 14, 2023, British singer Harry Styles will take his Love on tour to the Philippines, the second country of his ASEAN leg of the tour. The singer is expected to perform songs from his two recent albums, Fine Line and Harry's House, and most likely fans will also be hopeful that he will also sing old tracks released by his old group One Direction. On the midnight of November 23, official pre-selling of tickets will take place, while general ticket selling will be held 24 hours later. I want to watch that. And now to help you go through this week, here's a quote from Denise Whiteley, an American motivational singer. It is not who you are that holds you back. It is who you think you are not. You have to think highly of yourself first, right?
You know, how that is so true is also so sad, right? Because it'll limit you. If you feel that you cannot do this, that you are not this, that'll limit you. Imagine all the many possibilities that surround you.
If you just believe in yourself.
Exactly.
And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I'm CJ Hero.
And I'm Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.